My name is Carol Sayre.
And this is?
Ellen Tuttle, my mother.
Your name is Ellen Tuttle, and your parents were, just so we know where you came from.
What did she say?
Her parents were Glenn and Bertie Woods.
And then your dad's name.
My dad's name was Harvey Tuttle.
Okay. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have 5 sisters and 1 brother that has passed away, but the girls are all living.
After I married, then I lived on there. Yeah. When I was born, I was at home, and my husband-to-be's grandmother was the midwife. And then it turned around, and when my husband was born, my mother was there and took care of him.
Talking today about food.
About what?
Food.
Food?
Yes.
Oh.
One of the Germans' favorite topics, right?
Well, I know. I'm not German, but it's one of my favorite.
Right. So, how important was it that you grew your own food?
Well, if we didn't, it was very important. Otherwise, we couldn't eat.
And so, did you have a large garden?
Well, no, not too big. No, we didn't. My dad didn't own the farm. We rented most of the time, but we had cattle and milk cows.
Chickens?
Huh?
Did you have chickens?
Oh yeah, chickens and ducks and geese and
Turkeys.
yeah, guinea hens.
Really? Guinea
Turkeys.
hens? Did you eat guinea hens?
Yeah, you what?
Did you eat guinea hens?
No, we just had them they make a lot of noise. Keep the coyotes away.
So tell me some of the crops that you grew in your garden. What kind of vegetables did you grow?
And, well, we didn't have all the kinds that we have nowadays, but carrots and beets and peas and beans, potatoes. We always had potatoes that lasted from 1 year till they get new ones come the next year. And corn, of course. And,
Where did you keep your potatoes that they lasted
well,
for a
we
whole
had
year?
in the cellar. At that time, so many had root cellars. But when I was growing up, we didn't have a root cellar, but we had a side off the basement, little where we kept the potatoes. Yeah, but they lasted we'd have to towards spring, and we had to go down and go through them and take the sprouts off. That kept them from spoiling, And so we had potatoes till we got new ones the next year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What other things did you store in your root cellar?
Well, vegetables, carrots and beets and stuff. There wasn't many kinds that you could, turnips.
Did you can vegetables?
That's the only way we had to save anything. We had to can everything.
But you mustn't have had electricity out there.
No, we never, I was married, well, we didn't get electricity after I was married until about 50. I think probably 50 before we had.
So you grew up without electricity also.
So did she.
So how do you cook without electricity?
Well, wood.
Where'd you get wood from out here in the middle of nowhere?
Well, now, we never had to do that, but so many people went around in the pastures and picked up the dry droppings from cows, and that's what they kept the fire. There was coal or wood if we could, but we always lived kind of close to the water, the creek, and there was always wood. We always had wood. We didn't have to do that. Yeah. No, we had our own. No electricity, no running water, no washed on the washboard.
Really? How did you get water for washing?
Well, you carried it. You pumped it through with a pump.
So you must have had a well.
and then carried it, yeah.
Okay.
And if you didn't have a windmill, you stood there and pumped it. Yeah. Yeah. And lots of times, even with the windmill, if the wind didn't blow, then we had to pump for the cattle and stand there and pump that water out for them.
Did you use that water to water your garden?
To what?
To water your garden?
We never watered, unless we could pump it from the creek. We never had, and after I was married, we didn't have any way we could water it. I said we had all we needed that God provided.
So where did you get vegetable seed from?
What?
Seeds?
Vegetable seeds?
Well, a lot we saved. There was a lot of them we could save, but otherwise, then we bought them. They had these stores where you could buy the seed.
What was the closest store to your farm that you bought things at?
Well, it was about there where I was brought up, about where I was born. It was about 20 miles probably from town, and then as I grew up, then we were closer. It was about 7 miles, and it was 13 miles after I was married where we lived.
How often did you go to town?
Huh?
How often did you get to the store?
Well, not very often.
Because 20 miles is a long ways to go.
I can remember one year that I came to Linton. I came to Linton and I was pregnant. And the day before Christmas, I came to Linton and I never got off the farm again until the end of March. We had too much snow and stuff. I just stayed.
So did you have all of your children at home?
No, I was in the hospital.
Did you go to
I didn't have
school
any of them going
as
at
a
home.
youngster?
No. Oh yeah, we went to country schools. Yeah, I came to Linton and stayed with my aunt and uncle when I was in the first grade. But after that, I graduated from the 8th grade on the farm. Well,
Okay.
country school. Yeah.
What did you do if it hailed on your garden and you didn't have vegetables?
Well, I just can't remember that it ever even slowed things up. But there was lots and lots of times all we had to eat was bread and potatoes.
Wow.
When there was no way to keep meat unless it was canned. And there was lots of times for weeks that we didn't have meat. But otherwise, the vegetables, carrots, and stuff like that we could keep, and then we canned a lot. But after I was married, then later after I had my family came there, I didn't think of going into the winter without 500 jars of food that I canned. We canned everything because we had no electricity or anything. I had to can the meat and everything,
And did you store all of those in the
Yes,
cellar?
I stored in the basement.
Basement.
Yeah, and that didn't count jelly and stuff. That was food.
So did you have fruit trees out there for jelly? What did you use for jelly?
Choke cherries, mostly,
And those grew wild?
and wild grapes. Yeah,
Ooh.
and sometimes crab apples that we could make jelly. I can remember one year we had so many choke cherries, and I made over 100 jars of choke cherry jelly, and jam and syrup in there. And I didn't count that in my 500 jars. Came from Wales and England and in that area.
Did you have any kind of trouble fitting in with the generally Germans from Russia culture here?
Did what?
Did you ever have trouble fitting in with the German culture here?
No, I started out early when I first started to school on the farm. None of the kids could talk English. When they started, they learned to talk. I never did talk it, but I could understand a lot, yeah.
So did you cook any of the German foods like dumplings and things like that?
Well, not many, no. The English didn't, not like the Germans did, you know. My mother used to make dumplings and stuff like that, but otherwise we didn't have, till after I was married, then I learned to make some of that stuff.
So how about bread baking? How many loaves of bread did you bake every week?
Well, I never made bread at home, but my mother made a lot of, every other day of, and after I was married, and when I first learned to make bread, some of it I buried because I couldn't see it raise the ground out of there. I was so afraid my husband would catch me at it. But anyway, but after I got so I could make good bread, but I made bread, lots of it. You know.
So did you do bread baking and laundry day at the same time?
Well, lots of times if we had to have the heat for something else, you know, like we had to heat the water to do laundry and stuff like that, and then we had to iron everything and heat the irons on the stove, you know. So it didn't, like this hot weather we've had, that didn't stop us from anything, yeah.
Did you have a summer kitchen out on your farm?
We didn't, no.
So you did everything in the main house?
Yeah,
So.
no. A lot of people had a summer kitchen, but we didn't, yeah.
So what kind of crops did your husband raise or your father raise? Like small grains and crops? What kind
Well,
of crops did you guys grow?
Yeah, wheat and oats and corn and barley, yeah. There was a little flax when I was growing up. It was more later. But it just mostly wheat and the kind to sell to make flours. We used to take a wagon load of wheat or a truckload to Hazelton, and they had a flour mill there, and then we'd get maybe 1,000 pounds of flour. And then we'd take that home and store it. Then we had that much flour in there, and then about 300 pounds of sugar there. Then that lasted till spring. And,
So did you go anywhere in the winter time?
huh?
Did you go anywhere in the winter time?
Oh, sometimes, yeah. Hitched the horses on the sled and took off. And in those days, you know, we didn't have a telephone or anything to let people know if we wanted to go someplace for dinner, we went. And they was always ready. I said we always used to, on Friday we cleaned house, and Saturday we cooked, so that we were ready for company on Sunday. And it was always when they came, and they did a lot, and we always ate, yeah.
But you couldn't do anything else on Sunday, could you?
Oh, we did lots of stuff on
Did you?
Sunday. My husband worked in the fields, and if it got close to harvest time and you want to get the head of the storms or something like that, and it was ready, and we worked on Sunday. And we always had the milk on Sunday, you know.
How many cows did you have?
Well, I think the most we milked at one time was 32.
And that was like this.
Every milk. We did have a milking machine, but those things were so heavy when they were full of milk, and the girls and I did the milking. So we quit that. It was easier to milk by hand. Yeah. So
Then did you make your own butter and cheese and things like that?
Yeah.
Do you remember how to make cheese?
Huh?
Do you remember how to make cheese from your milk?
Well,
kinda tell us
cottage
that?
cheese. We
Okay.
didn't make other cheese, but we made cottage cheese, yeah. Yeah.
Can you kind of explain how that, do you still remember how to do that?
Huh?
Can you explain how to make cottage cheese?
Well, we just, you save the milk, you know. and then till it curdles, sours and gets curdled. Then we just put it in a kettle and kind of set it on the back of the stove, and then it heated up, and I test it with my finger, and if when I felt that it felt right, then I could take it off and then put it to a strainer, and there it always turned out okay.
Did you make K-Sniffle out of that?
Huh?
No.
What did you use your cottage cheese for? Did you just eat it?
Well, we just ate it,
Yeah.
yeah. We weren't making kuchen and stuff like that at that time. No, we just ate cottage cheese. I love it with, then we put some salt and pepper and a little, I love it with sugar and then a little cream on it. I still like it like that.
Yes.
But I like that good cream, not like we got that day.
You tell me where I can get good cream and I'm heading there.
Yeah, I
Because
tried.
The stuff in the store doesn't
Yeah.
work, does it?
When I was in the apartment, I tried so hard to find somebody that had unpasteurized cream so I could make some butter. Because I said, the butter that you got now is half wax. It's
Or
not
water.
good.
They put a
Huh?
lot of water in butter nowadays
there-
too, isn't there?
I don't know. Butter don't taste like butter to me.
Did you grow up, do you remember the Depression years at all?
Oh, lived through them. I was married in 33 during the Depression.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you this, and you don't have to answer this, but would you tell us how old you are?
Now?
Yes.
Well, in September, I'm going to be 102.
Amazing. What's your secret?
Just live a good life
Yeah.
Hard work.
and hard work. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about, what did you guys eat during the Depression? There was no food, was there?
Well, of course, we always had potatoes, and there was enough there, but it was it was hard to raise a garden or anything because it was so dry. It was terrible. But a lot of people left, went to California and stuff, but we stuck it out and we made it. And then Carol was born in 36 on the hottest day in the history of North Dakota.
That's something to be
It was
proud of.
120 degrees.
No way.
Yeah.
Really? It was 120 degrees when you were born.
Yeah. So she came into this world half-baked.
Okay, that's funny.
So if you wonder what's wrong with her,
And she always said that I had a full head of hair. And my head blistered and I lost it all. And she thought that I'd never have any hair anymore. But it
Well,
came back.
Yeah. Well, the whole top of her head was blistered.
From the
It was
heat?
in my hands. When I was in the hospital, the bed was a metal, and during labor I put on that. The whole inside of my hands was blistered,
No air
Yeah.
conditioning, right?
and no air conditioning. It was.
What did people do to stay cool back then?
You didn't.
And you
You just-
worked in that kind of heat?
That hay, and we went out in the fields. There was no crops. We had together. There was so many. It was so dry and hot that we cut these what you call thistles. No, they really grew, and we put at that time in the tires. They were a rubber thing you blew full of air in there. Maybe you could there. And anyway, we take those inner tubes and cut them pieces that long and pull them over our legs so that we could walk in those thistles to cut them. And then we what we called a hammer mill, and we put that through the hammer mill and then added molasses on it. That's what we fed our milk cows.
So your milk cows made it through the Depression. And
Yeah.
where did you get the molasses from?
Well, we could buy that. Yeah. there was no shortage, I guess, of that. But and then, of course, the war came on, and then everything was rationed out. But you couldn't buy just so much gas and so much sugar and stuff like that.
How did you guys survive?
Huh?
How did you guys survive?
Well, I just trusted God. I guess that's the only thing I can figure out.
I said they didn't know any better.
We didn't know it. We didn't know any better.
Because that
Yeah.
just must have been something
Yeah.
to feed all those kids and worry.
I talk to people about that and say that, well, what did you do? And I said, well, I didn't know any different. And I can remember not having any electricity or anything like that. And when I was first married, we lived and had just a little house that we lived in, and there was a spring, the water run down in this, and it probably wasn't a quarter of a mile, but a little distance there, and I used to put my butter and cream and stuff in gallon metal pails and take them down and hang them in that spring. That's how I kept my butter and cream and stuff that I had to keep cool. Then I had to go and get it. Every time I got a meal or anything, I had to go and get that. It was kind of dumb. Here about a week ago, I said I spent my night back in history. I dreamt that I was back in those days, and I was trying to go into this place to get my butter and stuff and dig up a meal to find something to eat. And it said, seemed like it was the whole night. It probably was 5 minutes, but
So did you butcher chickens every day then, or?
no, we just, if we wanted a chicken, we butchered it, yeah. Prunes. But not every day. Prunes, but,
Why is that everybody had prunes?
well, I don't know. That must have been something that they could get. A lot that wasn't expensive. I don't know.
So do you remember, was there anything that you made special at Christmas time, like a special cake or a special cookie or anything that you never got any other time of the year?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, there were certain cookies, like those Stefanu's cookies. We used to make those only at Christmas. And, well, there's a couple of times but my mother used to make a ginger cookie. And then we called them, the grandma's brown cookies or something like that. Anyway, and then she'd make a powdered sugar frosting and put between them. And those were another ones that we used to make at Christmas a lot. There. Now, of course, we make some of those. I don't make any now, but Carol does. She makes lots of cookies and good ones. But I never had a recipe for bread and pie crust and stuff like that. You just learn by, and when we put it in the oven to bake, the way we told, just to open the door and stick your hand in there. You could tell if it was hot enough to cook the bread and almost tell what temperature it was, yeah.
How did you keep the temperature even for the whole
Well, I don't
time?
know, we just kept the fire going.
See, that's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
I'm just flabbergasted by that whole thing. So did you make sausage and things like that?
Sausage and head cheese and liver sausage, yeah.
And
Made
then
it
how
all.
did you store that?
Well, we didn't make an awful lot of that until after we got electricity, then we had a deep freeze, but otherwise we had to can it, whatever we had, yeah.
And did everybody help on butchering
Yeah.
day?
And we usually did butchered after it got pretty cold, and it had snow. Then we could, a lot of the meat, we had these big wooden barrels, and we'd put that in there and then pack it in snow and ice and put it out in the shade behind the house. Have to go out there with a with an axe, chop it out to get a fish to eat.
So you're saying that you didn't have winters like we had just now where it was like 80 degrees in January?
One time I can remember for 6 weeks that the temperature never got above 130 below.
No way.
No, no.
6 weeks? How did you guys heat your house?
Well, with wood, coal and wood. Yeah,
And lots of quilts, huh?
yeah.
So did you guys have, did you go on any picnics or celebrate the 4th of July?
Oh, yeah. We used to do a lot of that stuff, you know, like, yeah, the 4th of July and Memorial Day, and those were big days then. And go lots of time, get up in the morning on the 4th of July and milk the cows and get everything that get in the wagon with the horses and come to Linton and celebrate and then go home in time to milk again. And yeah, I always waited for the chickens to be big enough so we could have fried chicken on the 4th of July and new potatoes, stuff like that. It was just, those were special times, you know. Now they don't mean anything, hardly.
How about beer or wine or root beer? Did your family make any of those things?
Well, my family, Mom used to make wine, not with choke cherries and grapes and stuff like that. But we never. But after I was married, then my husband made beer. Yeah, but we never made much wine. But he always made beer. Yeah, and I can remember one time we had bottled it and sealed it, and we had a pantry, and we set it up on the shelf, and those bottles all blew up. And boy, did we have an atomic bomb. Anyway, that got rid of that batch of beer.
So how about birthdays? Did you celebrate birthdays in a special way, or?
Yeah, well, we never had parties, or but I always used it, and Mother always did. I said we had so little when I was growing up, but she always seen that we had a nice birthday and a nice Christmas, and Easter, yeah. And another thing, we didn't have dye for eggs, but she could make the prettiest Easter eggs. And then rabbits didn't get in the house. They laid those eggs out under the plows and under the weeds and stuff like. We'd hunt Easter eggs for a whole week. And
Really?
and she'd had, and I don't know, she used tea and different stuff like that to dye those eggs. And we never, I was 14 years old before I knew there was no Santa Claus and no Easter Bunny. I believed that until I was 14 years old.
That's awesome. I think everybody should believe in Santa Claus now,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
you?
yeah.
Did Santa bring gifts?
Yeah.
Did you guys have like special Christmas gifts?
Yeah,
Or it
yeah.
probably was, were they
Well,
homemade?
not
or?
really. I said, I can remember getting dolls. Well, you used to get dolls, the girls, and my brothers, I can't remember, well, they had those Tinker toys and some things like that, but they made a lot of, I can remember my brothers taking old clocks, and then the Tinker toys, they'd make a windmill or something like that and take an old clock and wire it up to that so that it run that windmill. Yeah. And they made their own sleds and if you wanted it, you made it. Yeah.
Well, so then you must have done some harvesting with horses. Did
Oh,
you
yeah.
have tractors?
Yeah. We didn't have a tractor. Well, when I was growing up, I must have been 15, 16 before we got a tractor. And then after I was married, my husband had a tractor, but we still did a lot with horses. I never learned to, 'cause I never had to do that at home, but after I was married, then we could go out with the header box, and that's when we put these tires on our legs, to keep the stickers out.
Do you remember grasshoppers at all during
Oh,
the Depression? So did you do anything?
Well, just nothing, and then we had those locusts, they called them. They're like a grasshopper, only they're much bigger. And those big worms, they were so you couldn't hardly drive on the road. They just made the road slippery like ice for worms. But they ate the fence posts and the paint all off the houses, and it was bad, you just can't imagine. I can understand why people can't believe that stuff, because I often wonder if they think I'm lying when I talk about, and then there was no trees like there is now. Well, that's why they planted so many trees, because when the wind blew in the Depression, that it just took the dirt. There was times when you couldn't see out the windows because the dust in there. You couldn't keep it out. Houses weren't insulated and anything. You could dust 3 or 4 times a day and still not always have dust on everything in there. And it was just, and that sand, the thistle screw, and they'd blow up in the fences in there. And then that sand would come and settle in those thistles, so you could ride a horse right over the fence. Yeah. And I can remember one time we had snow, so that was in the 50s, that we had so much snow, my husband would hitch the horses on the hay rack, and then we had a Jeep, and he'd load that Jeep on that hay rack and go right over the fence with it. Yeah. The snow would be packed so deep and packed so hard that he could drive the horses right over a fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you have like a 2-story house, a big 2-story house? You said they ate the paint off your house.
Huh?
Yeah.
And then what
Locust.
You had a 2-story house.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you never lived in a sod house?
No.
So did you say that your parents were born in this country?
Yeah.
And so it would be your great-grandparents that would have come over here from another country?
Yeah,
Or?
yeah. Yeah, my parents were born in the United States, yeah. But the ancestors came from Wales and England and in there, yeah. Where like the Germans from Russia, my husband's mother, his dad was English too. And I think that they came from Wales, but his mother came from Germany with the Germans and Russian, yeah.
And is that kind of how you ended up in this area?
Ended
Like,
up
how
what?
did they decide to settle here in North Dakota? Did they have
I
other
don't know.
family here?
Well,
you
they
know?
started in, I think the Germans from Russia came to Michigan in that area here. That's where they settled. And like the people from England and in there, they were more in the east, in Michigan and around in there. That's where my dad was born, yeah. Was Michigan, yeah.
And so how did he get to North Dakota? Do you
Well,
know?
his mother, it would have been his uncle, one of them came here, and I don't know how they happened to come there, but anyway, he married one of my aunts, my mother's sisters, and then through him, then that's why the rest kind of came here. That's this area, that we had. Then that's why my dad came And I have to tell you
worked here,
one,
and then he
but
married
it was
my
kind
mother.
of funny. I was a nurse, to start with, and they came out that was after I was married, and this man, he lived up the river there between Bismarck, toward Bismarck, and called them the river rats at that time. People didn't have anything, and this man had pneumonia real bad, and the county agent came out and wanted to know if I would go take care of him, and so I went there, and my aunt and uncle lived pretty close to there, so I stayed with them when there and took care of him. But when I went to see him, he was in that room, and I'll bet it was 100 degrees in there. They had that pot-bellied stove stirred up till it was so hot in there, and the smell, just knock you down, and so when I went in there, his wife asked. She says, "Now, can I get you something do you need something?" I said, "You get me a good pan of good warm water and a rag and a towel. I'm going to give him a bath." And she said, "Oh, you can't do that. You'll kill him." And I said, "Well, you have your choice. Either he gets a bath or I leave. But if I stay here, he's going to get a bath." So she decided, I guess, she better get me some water. And there. He hadn't had a bath for so long, and I don't know what it was, but he must have spilled it on his trousers, and he said his underwear were so stuck to his skin that I had to soak that to get it off there so I wouldn't hurt him. Well, I finally got those dirty old underwear off of him and gave him a bath. And we had taken clean bedding and stuff with us in there. And I made her shut that stove down and open a window so we could get some. I said the things he needed the most is the things he wasn't getting. Well, after I gave him a bath and made his bed and got him, he said, "I haven't felt this good in years." And
Did he recover?
Huh?
Did he recover?
Yeah.
And where did you work as a nurse? Did you work at the hospital in Linton?
No, no, I never was after I married, I never, until I worked down here for 9 years, yeah. But I never worked otherwise.
And your husband passed away
Yeah,
long time ago?
well, in 76,
Oh my
he
gosh,
died, yeah.
that's a long time.
Anyway, this guy recovered and everything, and then, so we had a hired man that helped us out a lot, and one day he came back, and it was about 20 years later, the man died. And he came in and he said, "Well, Ellen, you finally killed old John Watson."
So where did you go to nursing school?
In Chicago.
Really? Your
Uh-huh.
parents let you go to Chicago?
Huh?
Your parents let you go to Chicago?
Yep,
By yourself?
yep,
Tell her what it cost.
yeah.
Ellen, tell her how much it cost you.
It cost me $100.
Did you make a lot of money as a nurse? You probably didn't
No,
have money.
after I graduated, then I went on a few special cases,
$100.
and I worked 12 hours for $7. Our tuition, and bought our uniforms and our books, and then we got to live in the nursing home for nothing, of course, and we got that free, and then we had 3 months probation, and then after that, then they paid us for working, because we had to do everything. We had to clean and do the laundry and work in the kitchen. We worked in every department and did our own cleaning. Besides taking care of the patients, we had to clean the rooms and stuff. So they paid us because they didn't there. And first year, then after that, then we got $7. And the second year, we got 10, and when we were seniors, we got $12 there. And that seen me through, and I could go to Chicago on the train for $12.
Where did your parents get the $100 to send you
My
to
mother
school?
borrowed it. Yeah,
It's just amazing,
did
that,
she-
that many years
Yeah.
ago, right?
yeah,
Did she sell eggs and cream
Yeah.
for money? Did she kind of have that little stash of
Yeah.
egg money like most
you
people?
what?
Did she have a little stash of egg money and cream and,
No, she borrowed it from her sister, the $100, yeah. And then they kind of helped out. One of my aunts bought me a dress, a new dress. Another one bought me a pair of shoes, and we managed to get got through there for $100. And now it's several thousand. In the hill someplace, and put a door on it, and go in there and make whiskey, and yeah. A lot of them did that.
Did they really?
But I never had anything to do with that kind of stuff, no. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they had to have that, in there. I always used to say if I was out of yeast or something to make bread, in the wintertime when it was hard my husband had to come to town to get anything. But if I was out of yeast or something, I could always make pancakes or something like that. But if he was out of cigarettes, he could go to town and horseback.
Are they the good old days?
That was
Do you think
important.
that
Well, I said the improvements, that have come, it's unbelievable to me, the things the changes. We had a minister, he used to love to come and talk about the olden days to me. And one day he said to me, "Boy, do I envy you." And I said, "Why, me?" And he said, "You've seen it all." He said, "There never was 100 years before that there was so many changes, and there never will be again." He said, "It's all taken place in your lifetime." And I suppose what can they do besides improve the things they've got? I said, they've done it all already. I've seen it all.